Today we are taking a look at Kyoko Sakura from Madoka Magica, the movie Rebellion. This is the figure by Banpresto. Madoka Magica is a dark fantasy magical girl series built around contracts, combat, and the emotional weight carried by its main cast. As the story moves forward, it keeps its focus on the cost of those choices and the tension between hope, sacrifice, and survival. Within that story, Kyoko is one of the main magical girls and a veteran fighter who stands apart from the others with a more independent approach. Today's highlights for this figure are the composed but confident expression, the distinctive wine-red costume, and the seated pose that still feels bold and self-assured. The expression is one of the strongest parts of the figure. The eyes stay sharp and focused, while the mouth keeps a small controlled smile instead of opening into a softer or more playful expression. That combination gives the face a calm sense of confidence, which fits the character much better than a more openly cheerful look would. The outfit is another major point of interest. The wine-red upper section, the chest emblem, the pale trim, the pink pleated skirt, and the long back panel all work together to keep the costume recognizable even in a simplified prize figure format. Because the color layout stays clear from the collar down to the boots, the whole design remains easy to read from front, side, and back views. The pose then ties the figure together. One leg stretches far forward while the other folds inward, the torso stays upright, and the hands settle low across the legs instead of opening the pose outward too much. That arrangement gives the figure a grounded, seated posture, but it still keeps the silhouette strong and unmistakably confident. This channel brings you figure reviews and anime merchandise updates straight from Japan. If you enjoyed this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. The face is built around a very controlled expression. The eyes are long and slightly narrowed, with red irises that use inner line detail and bright highlights to keep them from feeling flat. The eyebrows angle gently upward, and the small closed mouth smile adds just enough softness to the face without taking away the sense of confidence. Because the mouth stays restrained, the figure never loses that slightly challenging, self-assured mood. What makes the face especially effective is how balanced it feels. It does not rely on an exaggerated grin or a dramatic stare. Instead, the expression stays calm and direct, so the figure reads as confident from the start rather than emotional or delicate. That helps the head area establish the character immediately. The hair supports that impression very well. The bangs fall in separated front sections across the forehead, while the side strands frame the face without covering too much of it. That keeps the eyes and mouth clearly visible from the front and gives the head a clean silhouette. Behind that, the hair is gathered high into a long ponytail tied with a black ribbon. The ribbon gives the head an extra dark accent near the top, and the ponytail flows backward in long separated strands instead of dropping as one heavy mass. Because those strands spread and taper toward the ends, the back of the figure stays visually active and helps the seated pose feel less static. The two short upward strands at the top also add one more point of movement, so the hairstyle keeps the character's energy visible from every angle. The upper body works because the torso stays upright even though the figure is seated. That upright posture keeps the chest, waist, and arm placement easy to read, and it prevents the pose from collapsing into a relaxed or sleepy sitting position. Instead, the figure keeps a sense of readiness through the center line of the body. The top of the costume is built around a sleeveless wine red bodice with a high collar. Pale trim runs around the collar and the front edges, which helps separate the main body color from the smaller design elements placed over it. At the center of the chest, the emblem area becomes an immediate focal point, with the gem-like part set inside a framed opening that breaks up the smooth surface of the torso. Below that, the small pale details and buttons continue the vertical structure down the front. The arm sections are also important to the overall look. The detached sleeves are light gray rather than white, which gives them a softer contrast against the skin and the darker red of the costume. At the wrists, the darker cuffs add a heavier finish, and the small round accents on them keep the forearms from looking too plain. That shift from bare shoulders to light gray sleeves and then into dark cuffs gives the upper half a very clear layered structure. Another strong point is how the waist area is handled. The bodice narrows through the middle, then changes into darker trim and the pink skirt below it, so the costume keeps a sharp transition instead of blending into one continuous block. A tied detail at the side adds a small extra accent, and that helps the outfit feel built from separate costume parts rather than from one simple shape. Taken together, the upright torso, the chest emblem, the light gray sleeves, and the narrowed waist give the upper half a very readable silhouette. The lower body is where the pose becomes especially effective. One leg extends far forward and creates the longest line in the entire figure, while the other folds inward and stays closer to the body. That contrast immediately keeps the seated posture from looking symmetrical or flat. Instead of closing the figure inward, the legs spread the composition outward and give it much more presence. The skirt area helps with that effect. The short pink pleated front section adds compact layered detail near the hips, while the longer wine red back panel spreads behind the figure and widens the silhouette from the rear. The pale frill around that back section softens the edge and gives the lower half more shape variation, so the outfit does not end in one smooth, uninterrupted curve. The tights and boots also play a major role in keeping the lower half visually strong. The darker tights create a solid base around the bent leg, which helps that side feel weightier and more grounded. On the extended leg, the wine red boot becomes a long, clean surface, and the pale vertical line running down the front keeps the shape from looking too simple. The cuff at the top of the boot adds another break in the form, and the smaller emblem-like markings help carry the costume language downward. The hands are placed low across the legs, and that placement matters a lot. One hand rests across the folded leg, while the other falls closer to the inside of the pose, so the figure feels controlled rather than open or theatrical. That choice makes the sitting pose read as confident and slightly defiant instead of elegant or passive. What makes the lower half especially satisfying is that it still feels strong even without a standing action pose. The long extended leg, the bent inner leg, the spread of the back panel, and the low hand placement all work together to give the figure attitude. Because of that, the seated posture never feels small. It still gives Kyoko a clear sense of presence from top to bottom. This figure is approximately 19 centimeters tall. That's about 7.5 inches. For size comparison, here's a 350 milliliter can. That's about 12 ounces in the US. Overall, Kyoko Sakura by Banpresto stands out for the way this figure combines a controlled facial expression, a clearly structured costume, and a seated pose that still carries real confidence. The face is one of the strongest elements here. The red eyes, the narrow gaze, and the small restrained smile all work together to create an expression that feels calm but never weak. Rather than leaning into softness, the figure keeps a direct and self-assured mood from the very beginning. The hair also contributes a lot to the figure's appeal. The separated bangs keep the face readable, while the high ponytail and black ribbon give the head a much more active silhouette. Because the long strands spread backward and taper toward the ends, the back view remains interesting instead of feeling heavy or simple. The upper body works because the costume layout is so easy to read. The high collar, the chest emblem, the wine red bodice, the light gray detached sleeves, and the darker wrist cuffs all separate clearly from one another. That helps the figure keep a recognizable outfit structure even in a compact seated sculpt. The lower half is what gives the figure its strongest attitude. The pink pleated skirt, the long back panel with pale frill, the dark tights, and the tall wine red boots create a layered design that continues all the way to the bottom. Just as importantly, the long extended leg and the bent inner leg keep the seated pose from becoming static, so the figure still feels bold and deliberate. What makes the figure especially satisfying is that it does not depend on only one feature. The sharp eyes, the flowing ponytail, the strong costume layout, the extended boot line, and the grounded seated posture all contribute at the same time. Because of that, fans of Madoka Magica or Kyoko Sakura will definitely enjoy this piece. With that focus, collectors who appreciate a confident expression, a distinctive costume design, and a seated pose with real presence should find it a satisfying addition. That's it for this video. If there's any part of the figure you liked, feel free to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.